Hello and welcome to another episode of Rod's Tabletop Hoops. My last 4 days have been consumed by some card cutting, some corner rounding, some envelope making as I went to the FedEx office to pick up 101 sheets of uncut cards. And all of these cards are for the same game. And you've seen this game earlier this summer. It's known as Crunch Time Basketball by Bradley Logan and Gustav. Gustav's cards are the ones I utilized for this printout, and I picked 3 different seasons to print out, and 2 of those seasons are the expansion year for a couple of leagues, including the 1967-68 American Basketball Association. As you can see here, here's the New Jersey Americans. Eventually became the New York Nets, but this was their initial effort. 36-42, 5th place, 18 games back. That's not too bad for an opening effort in ABA history, but Gustav's cards are just legendary and great looking. There's always a team card, including a pace rating. That gives you +2 cards per every quarter. The cards are decked out with college name, position, height, weight. And the kind of little funny thing is when you have an expansion season, every player is a rookie. So Hank Whitney's a rookie, so Stu Johnson as Bruce Baggins. And the way Gustav works here is that every card is made for every player who played a single ABA basketball game in that initial season. The same holds true for his NBA seasons, his WNBA seasons, NCAA seasons. So that's always a cool thing. So you'll get not only a card for the primary team, it could be for the team he was traded for. There could be a card, and there's also a combined card. I don't typically print out a bunch of combined cards, but I accidentally went to the store and had the cards printed out. Here's like Laverne Jelly Tart right here. Laverne played his first 42 games in Oakland, and Oakland finished in last place. And he was then sent to New Jersey and finished off the last 31 games. So his combined numbers as a Oak and an American, he was 23.5 points, 39.1 minutes per game. A pretty productive season in the initial season of ABA basketball. Americans coached by Max Zaslavsky. But anyway, the ABA consisted of, I believe, 11 teams, and the ABA's initial champions were the Pittsburgh Pipers. And surprisingly, the Pipers, 54-24, who I believe defeated the New Orleans Buccaneers for the championship. They have an awfully large team. I believe there are 20 players on this team, plus the team card. So it's just, there are some players that played minimal minutes. There was also a couple of players who played for multiple teams as well. I believe Ira Harge was traded from the Pipers in mid-season to the Oaks, and so they have some extra guys. Oh yeah, they've also, here's the players that they received in trades. Art Heyman came through like a champ, and I believe he averaged about 20 points a game for the Pipers, who went on to win the championship. And of course, the Pipers have their superstar, if I could ever find him. He did average 20 points a game. That also includes playoff stats, which is one of the reasons I enjoy Crunch Time Basketball. There's Connie the Hawk Hawkins right there. And as you can see, 27.3, that is the regular season plus playoffs, 84 total games, 53% from the field, and there's basically your MVP of the league right there. But a bunch of cool players. And what I found, I've created my own 68-69 ABA season in fast break, and I find this expansion season quite amazing, quite fascinating as a matter of fact, because there were so many players during that initial season that did not survive in season number 2, or they played so minimally that they're not even recognizable in 68, 69 following the season. So these teams really, many of them, not all of them, like the Pacers still had their stars, but they also acquired Mel Daniels, who was on one of my favorite team names, the Minnesota Muskies. Where's Mel? It must be at the back. There's Mel. And there's that Muskies symbol. They won 50 games, finished in second place. So a good year for the Minnesota Muskies. And they had Mel Daniels and a whole host of other players. Journeyman Ron Perry. Let's see if they had anybody. Oh, Donnie Freeman was a very solid player as a rookie, as all of them are. Les Big Game Hunter, 18 a game. So that was a great team as well. But like I said, it seems like there was a remarkable difference between the expansion season of the ABA and season number 2. So I'm looking forward to playing a few games of that. In addition, I got a look for the first time at a WNBA expansion season. The initial WNBA season, 1996-97, consisted of 8 teams, led by the WNBA champion, Houston Comets. They finished 18-10. They played 28 games during this initial season, and I can tell the rosters are not too big. I think they were on a limited budget, but there's the Houston Comets right there. There's their team card, 18-10. They were led by Cynthia Super Cooper, the MVP of the league at 22 points per game. Oh, she's, of course, right at the back, and she shot a very reasonable 475 from the floor and 41.3 from the three-point stripe, in addition to 85.0 from the free throw line. She was also a good passer at 4.7 assists. She was just 5'10" and very small, 150 pounds, but she was quicker. She could shoot the ball incredibly well. I think her USC teammate Tina Thompson was also there to help her along double-digit score, a little more of a forward at 6'2". And just like the ABA, all players are listed as rookies right here. So Cooper and Tina Thompson, 2 key cogs in leading the Houston Comets to a very short championship. I think they finished the season, as you can see, the playoff record was just 2-0. So maybe they did the best out of 3, and they played a championship in that initial WNBA season. You had the LA Sparks, and of course the LA Sparks, as maybe some of you would know, finished with a solid second place at 14-14, but I was just going to point out Lisa Leslie, one of the great players of all time in the women's side of things, and she threw in 15.9 a game in 32.2 minutes, 9.5 rebounds per game. So you just have a lot of players, and a lot of the players in this initial season of the ABA, some hadn't been able to play in a professional league because they were in the United States for many, many years. Not all of them went overseas. So you'll get a team like the Phoenix Mercury, and the Mercury had a very solid team at 16-12. Unfortunately, Cheryl Miller was, she had injured her knee in college and was not able to play. Otherwise, she would have wanted to step on a WNBA court. It was a kind of a landmark year for the league. And of course, they're still around 27, 28 years later with people like Caitlin Clark and so on that have really elevated the league. But these people were the originals. And of course, right at the end here is Nancy Lieberman, and she was a rookie. But as you can tell, she was born in July of 1958. So if you do some quick math there, she was 39 years old at the start of the season. So amazing that she could even make the team, let alone play significant time. The other teams in the league toward the lower portion here, you got a second place New York Liberty, and New York Liberty was led by a couple of very solid players, including Teresa Weatherspoon. And you can see Spoon is, the Gamecocks coach, South Carolina, AAA on defense, AAA on the ball handling, so that player can help you in multiple ways. She's an all-around player. Rebecca Lobo, one of the fine college players at the University of Connecticut. And they just had Sophia Witherspoon, Keisha Ford. They just had a lot of good names. Sue Wicks, plenty of fantastic players. And I'll be happy to play a game of WNBA basketball with Crunch Time basketball. We finish out the league with the bottom feeder Utah Stars with 2 Z's. They were just 7-21. And you also have the Sacramento Monarchs in third place at 10-18. The final portion of my cutting out of cards and acquisition from Gustav was the addition of the 1994-95 NBA season. Now, this season is special in many ways. I remember it most for 2 things. And one of those things was the return of Michael Jordan as an NBA player, not as a lousy baseball player. I just was so weirded out when he left the league. And I'm no Bulls super fan or anything. I'm a Portland Trail Blazers fan. The Blazers could have drafted Michael Jordan back in 1984, but we're stupid. And this Bulls team had played the whole 1993-94 season without Jordan, who played for the Birmingham Barons, and got better and better. And then the Major League Baseball players decided to have one of their famous strikes, and that was one of the key turning points in Jordan returning to the NBA. And all I remember is one day they announced he was coming to practices for the Chicago Bulls, and the next thing you know, he's ready to take the court as a Chicago Bull, and he was not in perfect basketball shape by any stretch of the imagination. But at the same time, the guy did what he could and helped guide them into the playoffs. This is a combined regular season and playoff card, which is very pivotal for this game, because if you just included his regular season stats, he would have hit barely 40% from the field. And if you include the playoff stats where he actually had come back to life, he's probably at 90%. It raises his field goal percentage up a few points. He actually drilled 3-pointers and was good at most of the things he does well. Of course, they've got him listed as number 45, not number 23. And the Bulls ended up getting beat by the Eastern Conference champion, Orlando Magic. And the Magic just had a little more depth. Jordan made a few costly turnovers here and there because he always dominates the ball when he's in the game. The Magic, of course, were led by some huge, oversized man named Shaquille O'Neal. Let's see if he's in here very easily. See, these teams are big. There's 3D Dennis Scott. He's going to make your 3-pointers. Horace Grant, who was probably the missing link for the Bulls to go any further. If they would have kept Horace Grant and signed him, the cheap Bulls management wouldn't put out the extra money for Horace. And maybe Horace was just getting fed up with the management with Chicago and decided to jump ship. And he had a fantastic year with the Magic. They went all the way to the finals, and they ran into those Rockets, and the Rockets swept them in 4 games. But as I said, there's some guy here. Of course, it's the last card once again. Shaquille O'Neal with his AA rebounding, B on defense, A on fouls, which means he doesn't foul too often. He avoids the fouls. He played 100 games, so this is his complete season, including playoffs. And you can see the average is way up there. He also grabbed 11.5 boards, 37-plus minutes a game, even 2.8 assists, which makes him even a decent ball handler for a huge man. But Orlando was pretty special for a number of years. There's not just Anthony Bowie and Brian Shaw, Nick Anderson, Dennis Scott, Horace Grant, and there's Penny Hardaway, another fantastic player. Definitely one of those interesting years. So I've got the Jordan factor, Jordan returning, one of the great games I'd ever seen when he came back, even though he played terrible against the Pacers. The excitement built up. It was just unreal. You also had my Trailblazers in Portland. This is the Western Conference side here. Blazers finished in 4th place with just 44 wins, but they finally parted ways with their all-time great shooting guard Clyde Drexler. I don't know. Is it at the back? No, I was just guessing. Clyde the Glide, because there's a player for every team that the player played on. Gustav made a card for. So there we go. Clyde Drexler just with his Trailblazer stats, 41 games. Didn't shoot great, but it's kind of fun because I can kind of piece this Trailblazer lineup from the early 90s together. I could put Bucket power forward, Kersey at small forward, Drexler at the shooting guard, and then, of course, with the exception of Kevin Duckworth, I could put Terry Porter even, had an injury-prone year, but I could play 4/5 of that great run from 90 to 92 with the Portland Trailblazers as well. The Suns were solid. They still had Charles Barkley and just were hanging on there. The Spurs obviously were super at 62-20. There are plenty of great stories. The Pacers were very good. Reggie Miller and a 52-win season. So that's what made this season extremely attractive to me. I didn't have any other season of 1995 in any other tabletop board game. So, got Larry Johnson on Charlotte. I mean, you can go for days and see all kinds of stories in here. And that is the biggest league I've printed out and cut out in a long time. So there's your 1994-95 NBA with Crunch Time Basketball. The final portion of my discussion today is regarding the collecting of tabletop basketball board games and simulations. And does there ever come a point in your, let's just say, call it a collecting career, where you decided at a certain point that you've, I'm going to quote the replay gamer who does a lot of baseball, and he called it the saturation point. The saturation point refers to when over time, and maybe in over a 12-month period or an 18-month period, do you ever get to the point where you say, I think I've got enough basketball games and or seasons and or just flat out cards to last me for a while. I kind of came to that little bit of a realization this week. When I bought these cards, 67, 68 ABA, 96, 97 WNBA, and 90, 94, 95 NBA, I got about 101 sheets, as I mentioned. The reason I picked up those 101 sheets is I found a good code on the FedEx office. I wanted to print them out in color. I don't like, when I have the option of printing color versus black and white, I'm jumping on the color almost every time. But I was having this conundrum, and I was looking at the price price per page for a color sheet, like a 9-card sheet for, say, the WNBA, and you got a team like the Cleveland Rockers, and and they're just really neat looking cards. And the problem is these color sheets, this comes in a sheet of 9, each one of these cards. Those sheets, regular price at FedEx, is $1.31 a sheet. And that's a lot of money. If you have 101 sheets, I found these 3 seasons. I was just looking to print out one season at that price. And I'm like, well, 1994 NBA on its own has at least 60 or plus sheets. And I looked at that and I'm going, boy, that's expensive for just one season. I already, I got a really good deal from Gustav on the PDF of the thing, but to print it out in color, it might have made more sense for me to print it out in black and white, which would have been about $19 or something like that for that individual season. Well, I went online, and like many of us do, we're always looking for that little coupon code at checkout, right? You do a little search, you see FedEx, you look for coupon codes, and I kept finding 10% off, 15% off. If I spent $100, I got 20% off. Well, I lucked out, and I was looking around, and I found a code. I'll try to put it in here. I doubt the code still works, but it was 50% off your printing order. It didn't say how much your order was or anything. It's like, okay, I better try this and see if it goes into the product key and see if I could get 50% off. And boom, it did. So suddenly my expectations were much higher. I wanted to get a few sets of cards. And so I got WNBA, I got NBA 95, and I got ABA of 68. And I'm really happy that I got them. But those cards, without that 50% discount, were about $133. And so I got it for about $66. And so I was like, pleased as punch. I got 3 sets, exactly what I wanted, printed my envelopes out, printed the cards out, did everything cutting, and I just finished that mission to cut this 100 pages this week, and I've got all these cards to play. Well, I realized that I just bought Crunch Time 2 months ago and bought 2 seasons there. I played a couple games with them. Now I've got 3 more seasons. I got a couple games with them. And maybe not just for this individual game, maybe I've reached the saturation point with Crunch Time Basketball. And I really think Crunch Time and Bradley Logan and Gustav, they're just great people. I've been able to communicate with them ever since putting a couple of my videos up. They've shared their tips and tricks and tactics on how to best play the game. They've even made some adjustments. There was an error on a few of their cards for pace. And the ABA teams had some defensive rating issues, and Gustav quickly got on that, got me some new cards. I had to reprint a season of 69-70 ABA, but at the same time, we got it all back together, and I played a few games, and I really enjoy it. I've put a little bit of money into this game now, and I'm making it. It's in the rotation. It's in the top 3, maybe the top 4 in my rotation. And so I really enjoy playing a game of Crunch Time. But what I really wanted to look at, going back to the point of saturation, I not only have this game fully ready to go, I've also got some other games that I've received within the past, say, 9 to 10 months. And I was just going to quickly go over those. They add to the saturation of games that I own. First off, we got Bankshot Basketball, which was one of the star new games of 2023. Another game very well done by Joe Bryan. The game activates with dice and cards, which is kind of what I need to do. You can do it all cards, but I need to have a pair of dice in my hands, and usually it's just 2 dice, which is the simplistic way to do it. I don't like to have much more than 2 dice and a set of play cards, as well as a fast action deck in Bankshot. I don't even know the language anymore. It's been a while since I played Bankshot Basketball, and I bought a couple seasons. I'm ready to play that game again after I get in some Crunch Time Basketball. I really miss playing that game. It's well done, and it's still something I'm going to have to relearn because it's been so long since I played the game. Once again, another factor in the saturation. You haven't had time to even get back to this game since last year. Another game I'd like to play a little bit more of is Replay Basketball. Now, this was kind of a surprise to me. I bought that and just had no expectations for it. I've heard good things about it. They've got dice versions. They got a computer version. They've got card dice, no dice versions of this game. And the only minus of this game for me is still that 3 dice possession. Every time you roll those 3 red, white, and blue dice, you got to look at the card. You got to make sure, it's easy enough to do the card lookup, but then you have to look at that extra blue die to see if that number is higher or lower and how it relates to the defense. And so that takes me a little bit longer, and that's why Replay is always just above average at this point for me. It's not full thumbs up yet. I'm still learning the game, and I still have just the 75-76 ABA season of cards because I really want to get good at that before I make any additional investment in Replay Basketball, because like most games, if you're buying the cards and they're cut and everything, it's not an inexpensive thing. So, but Replay, still a very playable game. It's very well thought out. I just have a feeling, based on my initial impressions, the game takes a little bit longer than I like it to, but I do appreciate it. I'm not exactly crazy about the random play coiled up pads. I think they kind of not random play, but rare plays and things like that. They didn't come up for me too much in the initial games that I played. I just don't know if they add that much to the game. It is almost like they overdid it. They also have a fast break mechanism, which doesn't jive with me yet. It shouldn't be difficult to run a fast break. It should be much easier to run a fast break. But other than that, the game play is pretty darn good on most plays. You can always just ignore the fast break and you probably get relatively realistic results. And so I really do enjoy that. The play is results are mostly right off the cards. It's just memorizing what each of the characters on each of the Replay Basketball cards means. So Replay definitely just on the outside of the rotation right now as I continue to be saturated with a bunch of great games. Chris and Mike of Basketball Legends, they've put out a special game here that's a little different than what I'm used to. It's basically more of a game of ratings. And I think the reason they use this not individual cards type of game, it's so they can have multiple levels of play. You can have high school, college, and pro, and you just, as long as you have those home and road overall team numbers, you can actually play the game. Personally, I kind of knew what I was getting into when I got this game. I knew it was going to be more team-oriented and similar to their Football Legends type of games. It feels like a basketball game that's more of a football game. It's like move the chains type of team effort, momentum going backward and forth. So I'm still learning that game a little bit. At the same time, it just didn't interest me right off the bat because of the lack of individual numbers. And so I'm kind of like put this one aside for a bit because it doesn't get me up to play when I don't see Bill Walton on UCLA or Magic on the Michigan State Spartans right away. I don't think it's a poorly made game. I just think it's definitely a specialty game that someone's going to really enjoy. But I think the majority of the people on Tabletop Basketball Board Games, my Facebook group, or on this Rod's Tabletop Hoops YouTube channel just wouldn't favor because of the lack of individual stats. Next, we have Wayne's Game, also known as Computer Basketball. I had bought the original Computer Basketball from Wayne back 3-4 plus years ago. Maybe it's 4.5. I don't even remember. But I got an original issue of his game with the 1971, 72, and 73 NBA seasons in. He came back this year and decided to finally get that 50th anniversary edition off the ground, and he definitely succeeded. He has definitely reprinted a lot of the cards. The game boards have been revised a little bit. He's taken some of my advice on some of the modifications that he made to the game, and I've always found this game pretty fun. The only weakness I think with it for me is at times it's all dice and charts, and I almost find there's too much dice for me. I'm kind of like a 2 dice guy, and you've got to roll 2 to 5 dice, 2 to 4 to 5 dice, depending on the roll for rebounds for possession. That's not my perfect style, but Wayne Wisco's game stays on the inside of my playing schedule. It's a little toward the outside, probably game 4, 5, or 6, but it is a good game. I will give it a thumbs up because it is a lot of fun. And once again, you got to respect the game for the era that it came out in, which was the way early 1970s, and it's such a treat to have Wayne still having that enthusiasm and putting out a new game in 2024. The game has a big footprint. You got to negotiate that. One of my last videos kind of demonstrates how I make the game fit on my table and still be able to put out a video once in a while. But Computer Basketball is a good game. It's definitely got some old features, some old school things, but he's done a couple things to make, say free throws and chart lookups a little easier with the 2 10-sided dice and that type of thing. So look forward to some more games of Wayne Wisco's Computer Basketball in the near future. All right, we got, for the first time, I bought a game called Highlight Maker Hoops Prime Time, the full-time version of Keith Avallone's tabletop basketball game, and I purchased the all-time great teams with 12 of those best players on every single team, and that was always fun to argue and say, does this guy deserve to make the team? Who did he miss and not acquire? Who were the favorites? Where was the favoritism here? But I had a lot of fun with that. I'm still going to give this one a thumbs 3/4 up right now. I don't really have a true opinion of it. I played way too little of it. I do enjoy what I've done. The only key will be, once again, does it take too long? Does it get tiresome to go in 4-minute increments? I do appreciate the difference. This game is unlike any other game, and it's obvious that it wasn't just thrown together overnight. This is one of my little pet projects, basically, and it's in the rotation because I want to try it again. I've got a couple games. This is probably game 3 or 4 in my rotation. I know I'm repeating myself a little bit because I just don't know what I'm going to play from week to week. Once again, I have a saturation of games here with a lot of teams to play, and there are 30 teams in this hoops primetime, plus referees, plus coaches, things that don't exist in any other tabletop simulation. And I do appreciate Keith Avalone and all the work he does with all of his sports games, but I'm going to focus on basketball. I am Rod's Tabletop Hoops. I would not be able to have a channel if I started diving into his baseball games or hockey games or football games. I would just be overwhelmed. I'm already saturated with games. All right, here's my very recent trade for Status Pro Basketball. Now, as I mentioned before, I played this version of this game, this rough version of the game. I played the 79-80 edition. I think it was the 78-79 season of cards. This is the 87-88 season of cards. And I didn't have a lot of fun with that. But of course, back then, I was 14 years old. I don't remember exactly how the game played out. Maybe I just didn't like playing against my neighborhood friend. Maybe I just didn't get a chance to have this game myself. I never owned it myself. It was my neighbor's game. So I'm going to be trying this game again for the first time. Now, I know there's people in the modern day era of Status Pro Basketball playing the reboots and the remakes by other creators that do a fantastic job. I know that they like this game and they swear by it. So once again, the game has no dice. It's all fast action cards, which sometimes it's not as fun for me, where you don't get that opportunity to really play a role in the result, but you do get to coach your teams. It does have a fast break. It does have all kinds of offensive and defensive features. And I am looking forward to trying out Status Pro Basketball by Sports Illustrated for the first time again. All right, the other game I recently picked up from my good friend Kevin was Alley-Oop, the ACC Basketball Strategy game. And it's based in the 82-83 season of cards, and there are 8 teams in the ACC in 82-83, including North Carolina Tar Heels with Jordan, Perkins, and Worthy. There's Ralph Sampson on Virginia. There's, of course, NC State with Sidney Lowe. They couldn't have picked a better season, basically, with that trio of teams. Sidney Lowe, Cozell McQueen, Derek Wittenberg, Thurl Bailey on the NC State. That's a heck of a ball club. Beat my Houston Cougars in the final game, and Akeem Olajuwon did not win a NCAA title because of it. But anyway, I was doing a little bit of research. I read through the instruction booklet a few days ago, the instruction sheets, and it's very interesting in that it's pretty much all dice activated, and you got to pick your defense, and then you got to check multiple factors to pass the ball to a certain player. It's like a pass shot option. You start the ball with the point guard, you roll the dice to see if it's successful to the player. Say Jimmy Black of North Carolina is passing to Michael Jordan, and Black has a pass shot rating and Jordan has a receiving rating, and then the defender has a defender stop the pass rating, so you see if the pass is complete, almost like a football game almost, and then you can roll on Jordan's card for either a lane shot or a man-to-man shot. I can't remember exactly what it was, and see if the shot goes in with a 20-sided die. I think are they all 20? It's just using a 20-sided die. That's it. But anyway, there's some complexity there. I'm not sure if that's going to make the game flow very quickly. It's got a time clock, 20 minutes in 5-second intervals. So if you pass the ball, it's a certain interval. If you get a shot off, it's maybe 10 seconds. If you get a rebound, it's another 5 seconds. So there's a lot of tick, 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 type of situations where you're trying to run the clock down. And so should be an interesting game. Once again, when I get time for it, I'm going to play Alley-Oop basketball. But right now, my whole tabletop is saturated with so much fun stuff that I probably won't get to that for a little while. Finally, I'm going to bring up this game again. It's classic college basketball, or classic college and pro basketball, and by TBC Games, and I have yet to play a game of this. I've had this game box for a number of years, and it looks like it's a fun game. I've looked at a couple videos on it. They're FAC cards. They have different corners you flip, and you can kind of run your offense through these corners and these numbers if they're higher than a certain amount. And so if I find this game interesting, maybe in the future when I'm not saturated with the amount of stuff that I have to play, I will pull this out and play a game. I think I have the 1961-62 NBA season in this, and I thank Ralph for the game. I just haven't gotten to it yet. So anyway, those are the games that are on my table, and some of them are higher priority than others. Right now, I completed that Crunch Time cutout, so I'm really excited to play a couple of games of Crunch Time basketball. That is probably going to be the next video I show. So anyway, that's all I have today. Thank you very much for watching Rod's Tabletop Hoops.